So you're thinking about getting a prenup. Okay, in today's video, I'm going to be giving general information about prenups, what they are, what are the requirements, and why is it a good idea to get one. My name is Mehdi Charkawi. I'm a civil litigation attorney in Houston, Texas. My channel provides general litigation information to the public. If you like this kind of content, I ask you to subscribe, hit the like button, and let's get on with today's video. So what is a prenup? A prenup is a contract between two individuals that are about to get married to decide how is property going to be divided in the event of a divorce. Now, before we go any further, it's very important to understand the difference between separate property and community property. Separate property is any property that the spouse owned prior to marriage. That property, unless it's commingled, that property is already the spouse's separate property, and the other spouse, in the event of a divorce, has no claim to it. Now, let's say the separate property is income producing, then the income from the separate property during the marriage becomes community property. I'll give you an example. Let's say the husband owned a rental property before he got married, and this property is producing rent on a monthly basis. If he gets married, the house or the property that is producing income is still his separate property, but the rent that's coming in from that property is considered community property. Also, any appreciation in the value of the rental property is also going to be considered community property. What is community property? Community property is any income or assets acquired during the marriage. So you take a snapshot of the date of the marriage until the date of separation. Any assets or income that is produced during that period, and of course that is saved, that has not been sold or spent, that income or those assets are considered community property. There is this misconception that if somebody, let's say a woman marries a rich guy, then she's already coming into money, and all of the assets that this man had prior to the marriage, she's going to be entitled to them even if she marries him for one day. Well, that's not the case. As I explained before, it's only income that is earned and saved or earned and invested during the marriage or after the marriage and before the separation that is considered community estate, to which one spouse can have a claim to in the event of a divorce. What are the requirements of a prenuptial agreement? Well, a prenuptial agreement is simply a contract like any other contract. In the state of Texas, a premarital agreement requires that it be in writing, that it be signed by both parties, and that the parties give a full disclosure to each other of what their assets and their debts are, so that when they come into this agreement, they have a full understanding of what each spouse owns, what each spouse earns, and also what the kind of debts that each spouse has. So the state of Texas requires that both spouses have a full understanding of the financial situation of each person before a premarital agreement is executed. What is the content of what can be negotiated and agreed upon in a premarital agreement in the event of a divorce? Well, really anything. The parties can agree to divide their assets however they wish. An example could be that if the husband marries a wife, they can agree that in the event of a divorce, the wife will get a set amount of money irrespective of the husband's assets. For example, you can put in a prenup that if you divorce your wife will get $100,000, that's it. So that would be a cap on the division of assets or the amount of money that the spouse can be awarded. Another example, you could negotiate spousal support. You can waive it off completely, or you can negotiate a set amount and also the duration of spousal support. You can also have a sunset provision where you can agree that after 20 or 30 years of marriage, then the prenuptial agreement no longer exists and it is void. Another provision you can have there is a cheater's provision. For example, if a spouse commits adultery, then that spouse gets absolutely nothing. So there are many provisions that can be negotiated in a premarital agreement. What's important to know is that the children's rights are typically not negotiable in a premarital agreement. And it makes sense, right? So you can only negotiate your rights and the other spouse's rights. But the children are considered the third party or third parties, and their custody and their child support are determined by standard guidelines or should be determined by a court of law. So again, you cannot pre-negotiate how much child support you're going to be paying the children in the event of a divorce, and you cannot pre-negotiate their custody, who's going to get custody, and the kind of visitations that will be implemented in the event of a divorce. Is it a good idea to get a prenuptial agreement? The answer to that is, in my opinion, yes. It may be a little bit difficult and perhaps awkward. It depends how you approach it in the beginning. It may be a bit awkward to discuss premarital agreements and talk about money in a time of the relationship when it's all romance and everything is rosy. But in my opinion, that is actually the best time to approach the issue of a premarital agreement. And the reason for that is that I believe it takes the pressure off the spouses during the marriage, so that there's no more thinking about if there is a disagreement between the spouses, what's the best time to divorce? Should I stick around and perhaps my spouse is going to make more money? Should I put up with a bad relationship or put up with abuse just so that I can get to a higher settlement? I believe it takes the pressure off the couple, and it allows for a happier, more open, and more honest relationship. It's also a good idea because in the event of a divorce, you don't want a court of law to determine how your assets are going to be divided. You want to have control. You and your spouse want to have control over how things are going to go in terms of division of assets in the event of a divorce. So that's why it's very important to pre-negotiate it. You can have an attorney represent you during the negotiation, or you can simply, based on your spouse's resources, determine what's best for the both of you in the event of a divorce. Also keep in mind, premarital agreements or prenups are not exclusive to individuals that are high net worth. Anybody can get a prenuptial agreement. That will basically determine, again, what goes on and how assets are divided in the event of a divorce. And also, one of the benefits of a premarital agreement is that in the event of a divorce, it makes the process a lot easier. It makes the process a lot less combative, a lot less controversial, because prior to the divorce, both spouses, based on that premarital agreement, already understand what is their obligation and what is their right when it comes to the marital estate. If you like today's video, I ask you to subscribe, hit the like button. If there's a topic you'd like me to discuss or make a video about, simply leave a comment and we'll make a video about it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.